A little while ago, I made a video about stationery that I regretted buying, and I was honestly surprised by how many thoughtful comments people left and are still leaving on that video. So, first of all, if you took the time to watch the video and share some ideas or advice, or even some of your personal stories or regrets, thank you so much. I do read all of the comments and I haven't been able to keep up with responding to all of them, but I just wanted you to know that I do truly appreciate all of you and your kind and thoughtful comments in that video. A lot of you shared ways that you repurpose similar items, or some of you even challenged some of my opinions, and some of you even shared that you were judging me, and I honestly get it. I mean, I put my purchases out there and I did so judging myself at the same time. So all of it was appreciated. And over the last little while, I have, thanks to a lot of your comments, revisited some of these items. And in some situations, my thoughts and opinions have changed. And in others, things haven't really changed at all. So I thought today it would be a fun opportunity to revisit the items that I shared and just talk you through what has happened since, because for the most part, a lot of the products have kind of been given a second life and I've been enjoying them a lot more, and I thought it would be really nice to kind of come back and give you that update. Also, I apologize if you can hear some additional noise in the background. I really try to time when I film my videos for when it's quiet as possible, but this is the only time this week that I have to sit down and film. So I'm just hoping that some of that work that's happening outside maybe will pause, but I don't know. It's that time of the year where there's a lot of stuff happening, so please bear with me. Okay, I think that is a long enough intro, so let's just get right into it. The first thing that I want to actually talk about is my impulse fountain pen purchases, because this is actually the area where I think I got the most feedback, and thanks to you, I feel like for the most part I was able to overcome some of those regrets that I had. So the first thing that I'll talk about, this is definitely what received the most comments, and truly I'm glad that I even shared my regrets, because I feel like this was such an easy solution that didn't occur to me at all at the time of filming, and looking back now I feel a little silly about it, but you know what, I think it's okay to just put yourself out there, and thanks to that I feel like I walked away with a little more knowledge and a little more creativity. So basically, in the original video, I mentioned that I bought my first TWSBI, which was this Cafe Crema in the bronze trim, and it had a fine nib, and I fell in love with it. So when this espresso bronze came out, I loved the colorway so much, and I thought these two pens would look so good together, which they do, that I ended up buying this in an extra fine nib. And unfortunately, after trying it out, I just wasn't really in love with the extra fine nib. And so many of you suggested that I swap the nibs, because I said I really enjoyed the fine nib, but I preferred the look of this espresso bronze. And at first, when I got those suggestions, I felt very intimidated at the idea of swapping the nibs, because I don't know, I think I was just worried I was going to ruin the pen or break the pen or crack the section, because I know that's a thing with TWSBIs. And while I know that you can reach out to TWSBI and pay shipping for replacement parts, I also know that sometimes I can procrastinate on really simple things like that. And there was a small part of me that thought, if I break this section and I need to reach out to TWSBI, I'm probably not going to do that for a very long time. So these pens will just stay out of commission for months because I'm just going to take too long to do the simple thing. And that's just a reality of me and how I sometimes struggle to do small tasks, unless it's like an emergency. And so I don't know, I was really hesitant, but a viewer reached out to me who is located locally in the Toronto area, the GTA, and offered to swap the nib that she had. So she had a broad nib, and she offered to swap her broad nib with an extra fine. We met up and she showed me how to do the swap. She did it within like 10 seconds. And I truly felt a little embarrassed by how simple it was and how long I put it off for. But it's done. So I now have a broad nib in here. I still have the fine nib in here. And I liked the idea of having the broad nib because it means I can either enjoy a nib that I just don't normally use. So possibly with certain inks like, you know, chroma shading inks. I think a broad nib is really great for that. Maybe shimmer inks. But if I really don't like the broad nib, that also means that I can perhaps get this nib ground down to something else in the future. So if I'm at a pen show, like maybe Scriptus later this year, that could be an opportunity to try getting a special nib grind. So I'm very happy with this solution. I'm really happy that it was such an easy fix, one that I wouldn't have even thought to do if I had not made that video. And speaking of impulse pen purchases, I was completely head over heels for the TWSBI root beer that came out recently. And I've watched so many videos of people unboxing the pen, and it was so difficult to not add the root beer to my collection, but I am really trying to learn from my mistakes, and I'm actually quite happy with these two TWSBIs. I do like that they match. They're both kind of the, you know, the opaque style. Going to stick with these for now, and I do think the root beer reminds me a lot of my Pilot Custom 823 in the amber colorway. So this pen, I feel like it's not exactly the same, but this is kind of like my root beer pen. So I'm okay for now to skip it, but TWSBI does seem to have a lot of pens that they release every year, and each new colorway it feels like a new challenge to ignore. And I don't necessarily want to unsubscribe to everything and not look at them because I think it's just fun. And I think it's really fun to be able to witness somebody else's joy for these beautiful artifacts because, I mean, we're all stationery lovers. And even if I don't have it in my collection, I can definitely enjoy seeing someone else experience a lot of joy for having it in their collection as well. So I'm safe from root beer for now, but if a lot of time passes and I still really want it, because I would love to try the medium nib at some point, don't be surprised if it ends up in my collection, but it is a limited release, I believe, so maybe I won't be able to get it. We'll see. Now, the other thing that I really, really want to talk to you about is this Esterbrook Estie, because I need your help. I decided after that video to ink this pen up and just really evaluate it and see if I truly regretted it and might want to pass it on. And I didn't time this, but I had no idea that they were going to re-release this pen. I'm glad that they did, because it meant that a lot of people who missed out on this pen were able to access it. So I'm glad that they did that. Although I bought this pen secondhand from Facebook Marketplace, and I honestly paid more for this pen than I would have if I had bought it new for the re-release. So I was a little annoyed about that, but that's okay. It wasn't significantly more, but it was just definitely more. So I inked this up originally with caramel brown when I was showing my friend Laura this pen because she was thinking about buying an Esterbrook Estie. So I inked it up so that when we met, she would be able to try it out. And then when that ran out, I inked it up with Kyo-iro Cherry Blossom of Kiage? I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm sorry. Once that was done, I cleaned it out and I left it open like this for a day or two just to make sure that I allowed everything to dry. And then I noticed yesterday that there was like a pretty significant orangey brown stain that started in the cap near the coil spring and actually kind of bled all the way down this cap. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm just going to hold it up really close to the camera. But just inside this coil here, there's something. It starts kind of in the clip, and because of the way this is made, you can't unscrew this finial to dismantle this cap. So I ran this cap in my ultrasonic cleaner probably like for over an hour. And a lot of what was kind of inside this cap area, I was able to clean out, and I was able to remove this little plastic cap as well to clean that out. But there's still quite a lot of something here. I don't know if this is rust. I don't know if it's dried ink, which is confusing because I didn't have like a yellow ink. I mean, I guess I had caramel brown, but I'm confused. I'm just confused. So has this happened to anyone else, or is this a common thing that happens in pens, but you just don't see it because not all of them are, demonstrator style or clear? I don't know. I might reach out to Esterbrook, but because I bought this secondhand, I don't even know if they would help me because I didn't buy this directly from Bungu Box or I didn't buy it from Esterbrook. So overall, at this moment, I'm kind of disappointed. I mean, if I did something wrong, please tell me, because then I can make sure that I don't do this for other pens. Because I mean, maybe other pens do look like this and I just wouldn't know because it's covered up. But I'm upset. First of all, I feel like, I spent quite a lot on this pen, more than if I had just bought it secondhand. Overall, the writing experience was good. I liked it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite writer. And I wouldn't even sell this pen at this point because of whatever's going on over here. So I kind of feel like I'm going to keep it. It is a beautiful pen, but this really bothers me. And I would love some advice on how I can clean it. Please help if you have any suggestions or if you have any recommendations. I'm really at a loss here. But yeah, that's the update on this pen. It's unfortunate because I was going to update you and say it's a beautiful pen. It felt very lovely to use during cherry blossom season, and I did enjoy the ink combination with this pen. But because of this, I gotta say I'm pretty disappointed. So yeah, anyway, that's my pen update. Just on the topic of inks and pens, I can share an update on these inks. And so in my previous video, I shared some of the inks that I had kind of impulsively purchased and had some regrets because I don't use them very often. So many of you reached out to offer to take these inks off my hands, which I really appreciate. And I do recognize that some of these inks are like favorites for other people, and it just goes to show that we all have different preferences. I have still considered potentially selling these inks. I guess I still wanted to engage with them a little bit more. So even if I maybe don't see myself picking these first when it comes to inking pens. They're still wonderful writers, and Pilot Irshizuku especially is one of my favorite inks in terms of writing performance. I just love how they write in pens. They're so bold. They don't skip. They're not like, unlike Sailor inks, which I love as well because I think they're such beautiful colors. Sometimes they can be dry, which means they're not always suitable for all my pens. Whereas I always know that I can put these inks in any of my pens, any of my nib sizes, and it'll work great. And so I have been experimenting with mixing different colors just to see if these could be good bases for other colors that I will be more drawn to. And I will show you so I did some exploration with Kosumosu, and I basically mixed it with other Pilot Irshizuku inks just to make like other colors that I felt I would be much more likely to use. And so all of these purples, for example, I would be very happy to use in my pens. And so from that perspective, I have decided for now that I want to hang on to these inks because I do think they have potential in terms of making other colors that I know will perform really well in my pens. Because of the base being a Pilot Irshizuku ink. But even if I maybe don't want to use like Kosumosu necessarily just as is, I know that it has a potential to make other colors that I am going to love just as much, or that I will actually be excited to use. So that's one way that I have been kind of engaging with the ink a little more. Another thing that I have been doing is I've been sort of testing out the ink in different pens because I know that inks will look different depending on the pen it's in and the nib size. And so I've been kind of having fun just really putting it to the test. So for example, on this page, I actually really like how Kosumosu looks with this pen. So this is more of a broader nib, and I'm realizing that in a broader nib, it really softens the color and it shows a lot more almost chroma shading where you see like two different types of pink really coming out. You can see it as well here. And so I think because with these inks, I didn't really experiment with them or put them to the test that much. I kind of made a decision based on like one pen that I put it in. I think engaging with the ink in this way has been really fun for me, and I have been enjoying it. And the last thing that I will say is that I have been participating in some ink swaps, and I love curating ink samples for a specific person. And so if I'm participating in ink swap, usually I'll ask like, what are some of your preferences? And it'll allow me to kind of pick from my collection to curate something for them. And sometimes they'll say things like, I really love sheening inks. And I don't really have a lot of sheening inks, but it's nice to know that I have a few in my collection that I could share with them. So while I'm not going to use that as a basis to just go out and buy all the inks, I think I have now a quite healthy collection of inks. And even though I still don't want to buy new inks just for the sake of having inks to give away, what I do have, I feel pretty happy with. And I think I have a pretty good selection. So overall, that's been another way that I have enjoyed engaging in inks, is just being able to share with the community. So for now, I am not really looking to sell these two inks or the blackberry ink that I had shared in my video. But if that ever changes, I will probably post it either on my Patreon or maybe my Instagram account. So feel free to follow those. My Patreon does have a free tier. So that's the update on these inks. So basically, I've just been trying to engage with them more, have fun, use them in different ways other than simply just writing. And I also think these would be fun to paint with. The next thing that I want to talk about, because this is the one that has changed, is, especially how I feel about this, is my A5 leather portfolio. I really want to thank you if you left a comment about this for just getting me to kind of look at this again. First of all, it is such a beautiful piece. And I think the frustrating thing about it was I loved it, but I just didn't feel like I was using it to its fullest potential. So I felt like I wasn't really appreciating as much. Like I loved this pen wallet so much. I love it so much that I just feel like this is going to be with me for life. And I wanted to feel that way about some of the other products that I bought. And I just didn't really feel like I was kind of optimizing this. But since then, some of the ideas that you shared, somebody suggested I use this as a cover for my 5-year, which I thought was a brilliant idea. It does fit. So this is a very roomy A5, which means it can fit very chunky books. So I would even think if you had like a Hobonichi cousin and it was quite fluffy, it would fit even to double its size. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind. I've also heard that somebody shared recently that they use this to house their journal. They use the Midori Codex, which is like quite a thick book as well. Instead of actually completely changing the use of this, I made a few tweaks, and it's amazing how sometimes just tweaking the way you use something can make a world of a difference. And so what I ended up doing with this is I still use it for Happy Mail. But as you can see, this is full. So what I do is I store any letters that I have received and have yet to respond to in here. I originally had 2 packs of grid A5 size paper that I was using for letters, but they were taking up quite a bit of space. So I ended up taking out like a few sheets of each and put them in here. So I can use these sheets to write letters, and then when they're finished, I can just refill them. So I think this is a lot more reasonable because I can write quite a lot of letters with the number of papers that are in here. I still have a sticker release notebook in here, which I had been, I've been kind of filling up with stickers as necessary. But I also added in all of my stamps. So this is for Canada, this is for US, and then these are international. And it's just been really helpful to, when I'm writing a letter, I feel like I have kind of almost everything I need. I have my stamps to address my envelopes. Sometimes I put my envelopes in this little pouch or like this little flap in the front. But it's just been so nice because I can pull out this paper, I can write my letter, I can decorate it with some stickers in here. And then I also have all the letters that I want to respond to in here so that I can reference them when I'm writing my letter. In here, I have this extra Love and Trip folder, and it just has some more stickers. So I use these stickers in my daily journaling. It just doesn't really fit in that TN at the moment, so I've been putting it in here. And sometimes I use these as well to decorate letters. So it's just a nice, I think it just fits really well in here. And because it's on the outside flap, I can kind of reach for it whether I'm doing my own journaling or whether I want to use it for letter writing. And then this is I think it's a gel pen. It's a really beautiful brown black color. It's called Nuance Black. And it's a 0.5 millimeter, I think, gel pen. And this was a pen that Wonder Pens gifted to me as a thank you for one of the workshops that I ran. And I like it because I use this to address my envelopes. I was using one of my fountain pens to address my envelopes, but because it's kind of like a rougher craft paper, I started to worry that it would maybe wear down my nib. So now I just use this for addressing my letters. And that's about it. So very, very simple setup. but I just love how, like, look how much this holds. Like, I know it's kind of getting bulky, but I can fit a lot of stuff in here. And even though I had originally wanted to have all of my letter writing things all together, I realize that's not really realistic. And so this is great for just the letter writing itself. And I don't necessarily have to do all of those things all together. So sometimes I will just write the letters first, and then I will prepare the envelope separately, or I will figure out like ephemera that I want to include in it separately. So this is just lovely. And whenever I want to catch up on my letters, I can just pull this out and I can just focus on writing the letter itself. So I love this. It's getting so much more use, which makes me very happy. And I'm just so glad I have this, because I think this is perfect for what I need it for. And I was really excited to share that update with you. And speaking of letter writing, so in terms of its companion, this is my companion to letter writing. This is my Hobonichi Stappo, which I also talked about in my last video. I really appreciated your feedback. Some of you said that it was actually quite well organized, and I appreciated the challenge because it made me take a second look at this and kind of reevaluate whether I really wanted to completely change things up, and decided in the end that I didn't really want to. So it is still it's still an organizer for Happy Mail related things. What I did was I took out some of the larger things in the back. So previously I had a pad of paper in here that I was also using to write letters with, but I ended up removing that because it was kind of large and it was bending this a little bit and I didn't really like it. Instead, I just store pre-addressed envelopes. So sometimes I will pre-write my return address on envelopes. I have some more, I guess, to catch up on, but I will have these kind of tucked in here. And here's where I keep a lot of my extra like paper ephemera that I like to include in my envelopes. I've still got some of these little tags that I sometimes use to prepare washi tape samples. And I've also got my stamps. So I always stamp every envelope with one of my littlecocostudio stamps. Basically, everything in here are things that I would be likely to use when I'm preparing my Happy Mail. And I also have my two Pilot parallel nibs that I use for letter writing as well. When I'm sitting down to write a letter, usually I just grab both and I have both nearby. And yeah, it's actually been really nice because it's like I'll write the letter. So I'll kind of pull this out. I will write the letter. Also have the letter that I might be responding to nearby. So this is kind of like part one. And then when I'm finished the letter, I will kind of move into this pouch and I will grab an envelope and I will decorate it and I'll just add little bits of ephemera that are in here and then stamp it and grab a stamp from my sticker release notebook and then I'm done. So yeah, it's a little bit of back and forth, but I mean, it's just two things. And it also means that if I'm out at a cafe and I want to write letters, I don't have to bring this. I can just write the letter and then come home and kind of finish it off. So for now, I mean, it's interesting how attitudes can change because I think in my last video, I was really complaining about the fact that it was fragmented. It felt fragmented, but thanks to your comments, I realized that maybe it just needed some tweaks. And this just feels a little more manageable now because I don't have too much shoved into this back pocket. And I kind of have a lot of my ephemera in here that I like to give away. So it does feel organized from that perspective. And then this is just so lovely, just kind of keeping all of my letters in here because before I just didn't really have a space to kind of corral all of those things. But now it just stays like this. and it just makes me feel a little more organized when I'm responding to people. So I really like it. I'm pretty happy with this, and I still haven't figured out a solution for my stamps. They wouldn't fit in here because I have too many. So this is pretty good, and I don't see the need to really make any major changes for now. So thank you for encouraging me to stick with it, because I was really trying to figure out if I wanted to use this for something else, like maybe even non-stationery related. But in the end, I do think this works. And if things change down the road, then that's fine. It would probably only change if I found maybe a better solution for this, or if I had another idea for this that I thought would be better than how I'm using this for now. But so far, so good. So that's the update on the letter writing situation. Actually, while we're here, just going to say really quickly, another thing that I had talked about in my previous video was my regret on buying these Deco Rush. While I still don't really plan to buy more Deco Rush because I have had some issues, some of you suggested that they might work on different types of paper. So perhaps they're not great with Tomoe River paper. And so I ended up using them on this envelope, which is kind of like craft paper. And I did find that I had a lot more success using these on something like this. I have really enjoyed using the Deco Rush on decorating envelopes. And I've also tried it on some of the other papers that I use to write letters. I have a pad of Rhodia paper that I also use for writing letters. Surprisingly, I kind of like it because the line spacing is a little bigger than the papers that I have in here. So I've been using Deco Rush sometimes to decorate the Rhodia paper, and I've had success. So I'm not gonna run out and buy more Deco Rush right now, but I'm relieved that I can still use them, because I was on the verge of thinking they were just unusable and potentially just tossing them if I couldn't get them to work. But they do seem to work better on different types of paper. So thank you so much for those suggestions. I'm really glad that I tried again and that I was able to continue to use these really adorable Deco Rush tapes. The last item that I changed was actually my 5-year cover. So in my previous video, I talked about how I had tried a few different covers and nothing really felt like the one. So I originally tried this beautiful Atelier Phileas cover from Nomato Store. It's absolutely stunning. Such soft leather. It smells amazing, but it's too small for the 5-year. And then I had settled on this Hobonichi 5-year cover that was made specifically for the 5-year, and how I didn't really love it. And so I was still going to keep this anyway, but Mitch from Tab and Tannen actually reached out to me a little while after I made that video and offered to collaborate on a leather cover. So I asked for an A5 sized leather cover, and although I hadn't planned for it to be a 5-year cover, I realized once I got it that it would be perfect. And once I put this cover on, I realized I had finally found the one for this 5-year. I think what makes it different is the fact that it has extra opportunities to add some additional charm. And it's not that I couldn't do that to this. Like, some of you suggested adding patches to this, and I was very close to doing that. I think it would have been a great idea, but I didn't end up needing to. But this is just lovely. Like, it has the opportunity for me to add some of my charms. I really love the trifold. Like, that was something that I had really wanted to try. And I do actually really love this trifold style. It also means that I get to enjoy this burgundy cover. And so I do really like being able to see this as well. And I feel like it protects the cover really well because the way Mitch made it, it's just big enough that I can fit this in. So I don't have to use the strings. I can actually just put it directly into the back flap, which I really appreciate. because it is a bit of a bigger cover since it has a bit of a lip. So honestly, I have just been loving this. I think one thing I would have loved, which I didn't even think to ask for, is maybe a spot to add a pen. I think it would be nice to have like a pen dedicated to my 5-year. I don't really do that, so, you know, maybe it wouldn't matter if I had a pen, little pen slot or not, but I think that would be a nice feature if possible. But otherwise, this is great. I can't wait to see how this patinas. You can see it already has patinaed a little bit since I got it, which I think is really cool to see. It's very soft and it doesn't add a lot of bulk to my 5-year because this is a very heavy book already. And I think some of the Hobonichi covers that they've come out with, they do look a little bulky, and I don't know, I just don't really like when books feel overwhelming. So I like how thin this is. And I also think if I did want to start adding more ephemera, or if I wanted to kind of like fluff up this book, I think this could handle it because there's so much room here. So overall, I wasn't planning on getting a new cover. I guess that's something that changed, but I'm grateful that I had the opportunity because it did feel like it breathed some new life into this book. And even though I was kind of resigned to using another cover that I wasn't that excited about for the next year and a half, it's still a good significant amount of time. So I'm not usually one to like switch out my covers that much because I get very attached to certain covers and I'm really dedicated to trying to get them to patina. And I've realized for me that seems to take longer than I initially thought. So the only way that I'm going to get this to patina is if I use it consistently every day. So I wasn't planning on switching, but I did, and I'm very happy that I did. And I no longer feel like I leave this out on my coffee table and I actually just love how it looks. As for these covers, I will share some ideas that I had that I didn't end up really executing, but one idea that I had was to get A5 sized rings and turn this into like a rings binder. I also thought about doing it for this one as well, to the point where I actually bought A5 sized gold rings, and I was very close to converting this into like a rings binder. But my issue is that I realized if I wanted to say use A5 rings paper, I think this would have had to have been wider, because once you add the rings in, then it's almost like not quite A5 size. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll use TN sized paper, because that's another notebook that I have a lot of paper of. It started to just feel too finicky. Like, for example, this is my A5 Me Plus rings binder, and you can see it's quite a bit wider, and this has no rings in it already. Because I was originally thinking maybe I'll get wider rings and I could turn this into like an ink catalog. So that was the idea that I had. But I think I'm just going to hold off on that idea for now. So somebody reached out to me on Instagram and offered to take this off my hands. So I think I'm actually going to give this away to this person who reached out. We're just figuring out the logistics. And as for this one, this is still this is still pretty much in new condition because I didn't use it for very long and then I put it in the dust bag. So I think I am going to try to sell this. So if any of you are interested in this cover, feel free to reach out. Ask any questions that you may have. It is beautiful. I just don't think I'm going to use it. And if you want to get this and turn it into a rings binder, I think, this could be really good. That's what I'm going to do with these covers. The first item that really hasn't changed at all is this Superior Labor Engineer Pouch. I talked about how I kind of bought this because it was on sale and I had been wanting to try this, and Superior Labor products never go on sale. So I kind of jumped on the opportunity to try this at a discounted price. And currently I use it to house a lot of like markers and little additional random things like a color wheel. I think I'm okay with this for now. I had thought about using it for different ways, like non-stationary related. Some of you suggested I use it for like toiletries bag or maybe for travel, and I think I might actually do that when I travel next. But it actually does hold a lot, and I took everything out of this recently to test it out as something to corral small items in my purse, because I've recently switched over to a bigger bag because my existing bag purse that I'd been using for 3 years is just completely like kind of falling apart, and I needed something new. And I think that fits really well, but it also made me realize like how much stuff this actually holds. And until I find a better way to store some of these markers, I think for now I'm just gonna keep it as is. So it holds a lot of stuff and it fits really well in a little drawer in my living area. So it sort of keeps things tidy, and I realize I do a lot of my journaling and stuff in my living room anyway because I have this big coffee table, and I think it's just nice to kind of have like closed storage for a lot of items. So for now, I haven't really changed anything. I think my attitude maybe has changed, and I'm just not feeling so regretful. I'm grateful that I have something to corral so many small items, and I think if another use case comes up that I think it'll be better for, then I have the option to change. So yeah, no change here. And I think this is the last thing to touch on. I talked about how I had kind of started cataloging a lot of my ink bottles and ink samples on these color ring cards, and that because I don't really use white paper that much, I felt like this wasn't really the best way to catalog my inks because I very rarely reach for white paper. One of my favorite suggestions that I got was to potentially take these swatches and frame them and kind of turn them into art. And so I might still do that because I do love seeing really colorful displays. So I could imagine like I could do a monochrome version where I just do all of my brown inks, or I could do like a rainbow version or an earthy version. So I might still do that. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I really wanted to share that with you. The other thing too is that if I'm ever maybe going to like an ink meetup, or I want to share inks, I realize that like I might be kind of in the minority of preferring cream paper. And so it might actually be more helpful to share these colors against white paper or like a white background, because maybe that's going to be easier for other people to really get a sense for the color. Because I do know that the cream paper does change the way the ink shows up. And so I don't know if I will continue to swatch every single sample that comes through my door, but I'm also rethinking whether I want to scrap all of this together. The other thing is I was thinking about making like swatch cards from Midori paper, but I was watching Journal with Jazz, and she talked about how making the swatches on Midori paper was kind of hard because the paper is quite thin relative to something like a card. And so if you're switching things around or if you're moving things around, it's a little more, I guess, prone to getting damaged. And so that did give me pause to think, these are thicker cards, so they're a little more durable than like just a thin piece of paper. I haven't really done anything, basically. I think I'm just still kind of in the contemplation stage of like, do I want to continue using this system? Like maybe this is just one of the ways that I swatch things, even if it's not the only way. Or do I want to completely do swatch cards all over again using a different kind of paper? Or do I just do something different altogether? Like maybe I get an MD notebook and I just use that notebook to catalog all of my inks. I don't really know. And because I don't have a strong opinion, I'm not gonna take action, but I'm not gonna get rid of this. It is kind of satisfying to look at, to see all the colors that I did take the time to write out. Like some of these colors, these were ink samples that I've given away, so it is kind of nice to have a record of them. I guess that's my update there, is I really haven't done anything, but I did want to share that idea of turning it into art. I think that's really cool, and I may do that at some point. I am really grateful that I have this channel and this space to talk to all of you about these things, because I think sometimes I can get very singular with my thinking, and I can be very literal. Like, I buy a pencil case to be for pencils and pens. And I mean, sometimes I can think outside the box and be creative, but then other times I just don't think about things. And I think that's why it can be so valuable to share my experiences and then hear from all of you. So I am so grateful that I got some great suggestions. And I also think there's something really valuable about putting these things into words, or in a sense, like concretizing things, because it allowed me to reflect on what wasn't working. And it also kind of got the wheels turning in terms of what changes I wanted to make. I didn't feel like I was forcing myself. It felt like a very organic process. And some of the changes actually kind of kickstarted even more like creative ideas. So for example, swapping these nibs got me thinking about like just feeling more confident about swapping nibs in general. And one of my favorite swaps since then was taking this Ancora pen that I got in Japan. It came with an MF nib, and swapping it out with a Fude nib from one of my other Sailor de Manin pens, and now I use this as a highlighter. And I've also been drawing with it as well. So it's kind of allowed me to engage in even another item that I kind of forgot that I had, because I didn't initially really like the form of it, and I didn't really know how to use it. But now I've turned this into like a very practical everyday pen that has a really great function, and I've just been enjoying it and using it. And I don't know if I would have thought of swapping nibs in here. I hadn't really kind of started with these TWSBIs, so I do like that I've been able to kind of experiment more, and that you encouraged me to do that. So I thank you for that. I think my biggest takeaway was I don't have to blow everything up. And I also don't have to force myself. If there's something that I'm ready to move on from, like that 5-year cover, then it's okay. I can move on from it, and hopefully it'll make someone else very happy. I think some of these small changes can have a really big impact. So that is everything that I wanted to talk about today. If you have any personal stories of items that you initially regretted and found your way back to them, I would love to hear them. I think that kind of story is really inspiring to me, and I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. All right, well, if you're still here, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you soon in the next video.